Hey guys, this is Savannah from earthandwater.co. Today I'm here with Katie Grimes, who is a business coach and a podcast host herself. And we're going to talk about something that we find as business owners doesn't get talked about enough, and that is business overwhelm and burnout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really glad we're talking about this because I
It's
know we've both been feeling it. So it's like, I love when I said to you, I was like, "Oh, do you want to talk about it?" And you're like, "No, let's just talk about it on the podcast because it, I think having a real raw conversation about burnout and overwhelm is really important. And it, like you said, it's not talked about enough."
it's not. There's this whole persona in business, like business communities, I suppose is the word. You get around all these because you got to hang out with other business owners if you're a business owner so that you can talk about the things that you need to talk about and with people who understand and bounce ideas around and be like, hey, discuss marketing techniques and like just all sorts of things, right? You have to hang out with the people that are doing the things that you're trying to do. And there's this whole persona in the business community of it's kind of a fake it till you make it thing. There's a lot of misconceptions
Yeah.
with a lot of things that we use, but we're really prone to ignoring or pushing back or acting like we're not overwhelmed and acting as though we have everything figured out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
which is really intimidating to our peers because it's like, oh gosh, they have everything figured out. Why don't I have everything figured out? And then you go on the spiral. But the truth of the matter is that it's all a show. None of us have anything figured out. Whatever's working for us is working right now, and it may not be working later. And we're just going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
And we'll teach you the lesson then.
Yeah, we're honestly all a little crazy to have chosen this path to begin with because it is just constant turmoil.
Oh, it's funny you say that. You're reminding me that this past weekend I was with a former client of mine, and she said, "Oh, I went to an event at this company that I had originally created." And she's like, "Everybody was asking about you, and they said, man, she looks like she's killing it on social media." And like she looks like she's just killing it. Like her business is doing so well. And I just looked at her and we both started laughing because we both know that like I'm not killing it, and I don't even know what killing it means to people, right? So I think we can define that a little bit. But then also, we know how hard, like, cause she's on social media as well. Is like we both were like, killing it is so funny because it's like we are killing ourselves to try
Literally.
to appear as though we're killing it. And I remember one time I advertised that at the time I had made $450,000 in my business, not like since inception, right? And I always try to be like very specific. Like I'm not killing it in the sense that I made that in 1 month just yet, but like over the term of since I started my business. And my mom called me and she's like, Kate, like you're putting it out there that you're making all this money, but like I know that like you have some debt. And she was like, you might be giving people the wrong perception. And I think she even I don't know if she was asking for money. I forget what she was asking for. But I remember being like, oh, isn't that interesting? Like, how come I'm choosing to share at that point all of the accolades and the success, and yet I wasn't necessarily, or I questioned myself, like, am I sharing the mistakes or the lessons learned and whatever else? And I realized something very important, which is I do share both consistently, always. I'm super transparent, really honest. But not everyone sees your social media every single day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And so my mom signed on, you know, that week, and yet maybe hadn't signed on for weeks. And so she didn't really see that there was lead up to that story of like, hey, I made $450,000. And she also didn't read the post it told me. Because in the post, I actually talked about like, and here's all the lessons I've learned that have been really challenging to try to get to this point. Like I stressed myself out and I worked so hard and so many hours and took on more clients and then less and tried to find this mix and ended up like stressing myself out and having to go to the chiropractor and doctors and get on supplements and go to a nutritionist and figure out like, why am I so sick? Like, why can't I get better? And that's where the debt came from. And then the debt also came from trying to purchase courses, coaches, therapy, modalities, anything that I could think of that could help me advance my career and have success faster within my business. And ultimately realize that that's not necessarily the best way to do it, but that is something that is very common for all of us. And that can lead to burnout and exhaustion.
Yeah, because we think that things should be better now. Maybe better now. So, what do I need to get? What do I need to do next? What do I need to? And so we're constantly piling all of this stuff on top of it. Like, for it's like having a bleeding wound, and instead of just cleaning it up and putting a patch on it, we're like throwing all of these salves and all of these medications and herbs and just like and then you have like this just pile of gunk on top of your wound. So
Yeah.
when you could have just cleaned it. And that's the thing, is that we do get stuck in the cycle of more, in the sense of like, what more do I need to do? And my husband, thank God he's level-headed, always reins me back a little bit with he'll be like, baby, kiss. And what that means is keep it simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So if the more and more you do, the more you're just going to work yourself into this rut, when really you just, most of the time, most of us just need to dial it back, make it simpler, make it simpler. And once you get a bunch of like all these simple things connected together and you build essentially it is like, they become really complex businesses, but they're built off of the simplest things. You got to start with one thing. And it's just like, having a business is an extension of ourselves. It's a very personal integration with who we are as people, mind, body, soul. Like there's no disconnect. And just when we're trying to heal ourselves, or quote unquote fix ourselves in any other way, like with food issues or health problems, instead of throwing more at it, most of the time we need to dial it back a little bit and create some space around it and try to figure out, okay, where is this coming from? What is one thing that I can instill as like a routine per se, a habit? And because, when we go into things like that, and it's the same thing, you can use it, it correlates across the topics, but people want to overhaul their whole diet overnight. And you can't do that. It's unsustainable. It's overwhelming. That's exactly how you're going to get burnt out on it, and you're not going to stick with it, right? But if you just change one thing and that's it, you let it be simple, you let it be easy, and then you can add another thing, and you let it be simple and be easy. And it's the same process with building a business.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're reminding me that I had changed my prices, I had changed my course name, I had changed how many offers I had. I even changed at one point, going from a relationship coach to business coaching. And what I've since realized is like that's just a part of my personality, one, but two, if I look at if it was based in faith or was it based in fear, making those changes,
Yeah.
I would say that a good majority of the changes that I made specifically as it relates to like course names, pricing, all that, that was based in fear.
Mm-hmm.
Changing from relationship coaching to business coaching was definitely from a place of faith. Like it was just this grounded knowing of like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do. Like I know that my purpose in life is to teach people how to find their own purpose and start their businesses and have that freedom and flexibility while also being really honest and transparent. And I think that, I was having this conversation with a woman today. We were talking about the fact that she's got this employee, and this employee is a workhorse. I mean, this girl cannot stop working. And, she's just like working 7 days a week. She hardly wants to take vacation. And she said, something just doesn't feel right. And I said, what I'd ask you to look into, if you're open to it, is start having conversations with her about how she grew up and I said, listen, you're not her therapist. You're not trained to do this. But like, if you can understand a couple of things. One, how did she grow up? Two, how does she seek validation now? And three, like, what's her love language? Is it words of affirmation? What is it? Because I go, I guarantee from what you're sharing, the minimal, and I'm giving you the highlights, and I'm definitely generalizing and making assumptions, but I definitely took away from the conversation that this is a person who probably grew up in a highly dysfunctional home, who does not know how to just sit still with their feelings because they just have to go, 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 right? And they had to earn the acceptance and love and approval from whoever was their caregivers by achieving and by continuing to work and to stay busy. And so the downfall for that, that's been my own experience as well, is like the downfall of that is that it's hard to sometimes sit down and relax and to just trust that the little that you do will make a really big difference. And I think we've, I've worked in corporate America for, almost 15, 20 plus years. And it was all driven on performance and how well you were bringing in business and how long hours you were working, etc. And it was never about the emotional. It was never like, are you taking this action based in faith, or are you taking it based out of fear? And I would say that one thing that I've learned about all these changes that we make in business and the constant like busyness that we keep ourselves in is definitely, from me, it's a place of fear. I mean, I'm doing it because I feel the pressure to make money and I feel the pressure to make an impact on people's lives. And that impact's not really driving it as much as the income is, right? Because I need to make money in order to keep the business open. And I also need to make money in order to live. And so when I have those basic needs met, even that sometimes doesn't feel enough. I mean, we started talking about more, right? It's like, I oftentimes find that I'm like, okay, I want more than more. So then that way I can sit back, relax, trust that it's all going to work out. And I've been reading this holistic psychologist a lot lately. She's been posting about, is it the fact that we are living in a society where there's a lot of pressure to make a lot of money because the cost of living is rising? And maybe that's really the mental crisis that we're experiencing. And I think it's an important conversation to have as it relates to burnout and overwhelm, because it's definitely been my experience too. Is we talked about this when we started it. It's like, are we trying to pretend that it's so luxurious to run your own business, or are we really talking about the nights where we're crying or we have to reschedule? Or I texted you today and was like, I'm gonna come in like a sweatshirt and no hair and makeup because my energy is better placed in doing other things like showing up for this podcast than it is to take 15 minutes to a half hour to get ready,
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of us fall into that not enoughness from a standpoint of how we grew up. Absolutely. I know I did. Absolutely. When I started all of this, I was the way I had no idea I was going to run my own business. I had no intention of it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. It was just, I was a college kid in my early 20s, and like the pressure was on to figure it out. You better start figuring it out. And all I knew was I wanted to be successful. So I started Googling that, and I had a point, but I don't know what it is now. And here we are years later. Oh, yeah. But to be successful, because all I wanted was to prove myself to those in my life that I was good enough, that I was more than what they thought I was, that I could do things. And then I started, gosh, what a journey. I've been doing this for probably 10 years. It's been about 10 years at this point. So
Wow.
it's a really long time, a lot of stuff, and we could really unpack it, because I also felt the pressure to help people and to bring some good to the world. And you can do that in a regular 9 to 5 type job, but it's kind of hard to find those specific jobs that have like the purpose and the meaning that really touch to you and whatnot. So and utilizing the skills that you have available and the talents that, because I knew I could write, and I knew I was a good researcher. And
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of like from there it turned into a blog, and then from there it just grew into coaching, and like it's just been a really long ride. But coming back to the pressure of current events, it is getting worse. The we've never Me and my husband have always been pretty good with money, and we've never had to budget because we've always just been good with money. We don't overspend, we don't splurge, we don't whatever. And but with inflation being the way it is and how things are moving forward in the economy, we've started to have to actually budget the past year. And that puts on a lot of pressure because then you come back to your business and you're like, okay, and you're just poking it with a stick. I need you to do more. I need you to do more, which translates into us doing more, of course. But the cycle of hoping that more will create the space to be able to do less is counterintuitive, because the right, you follow your intuition with that. You're like, okay, obviously I have to do more to be able to make that happen, right? And that's where everybody falls into, I have to do more so that I can do less. When you know what, I'm coming to the past several months, I've fallen into a sense of surrender, I suppose, to where I'm going to do less first because I've done enough. I have hustled on this business. I've done all of the things they said to do. I have whatever stressed over what to name the courses. And the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter what you name the course. It matters what you put into the course. And I've always had a problem with marketing, like translating to people outside of the course what's in the course. And
Same. Yes, that's been my biggest challenge. I mean, you're kind of reminding me. I want to go back to something you said. You said like, we're put this pressure on us, or pressure is put upon us from an early age, right? I remember like as you were talking about that story, I was thinking like, man, probably in high school they were like, so what do you want to go to college for? And I'm like a sophomore, right? Because they're prepping you at this point to take the SATs, etc. And I don't know about you, but at 15, I didn't know myself.
Nope.
I don't think anybody does.
Nope.
There's no courses. I mean, you don't take any sort of leadership or coaching or any of that stuff until you're able to make some money, which is probably for most of us in our 30s and 40s, right? And sadly, some people in their 50s and 60s will never learn this lesson because it just wasn't a part of their culture. So I think there's an advantage to the younger generations and those that are parents of the younger generations, because now they're starting to see like, oh, we do need to put this in we do need coaches. We do need people who understand how dysfunction has shown up and how it's creating the self-worth within ourselves and within our children, right? So I think like I really resonated when you were talking about like this kind of pressure to have it all figured out like right at the beginning. And I also was not taught that like the things that come natural to me, communicating, connecting, writing, that listening, I mean, that's a skill I've had to learn, but that has definitely been all of those skills I've been able to then translate into a career. And I was always trying to fit myself and mold myself into finance and, information management companies and executive assistant roles and sales roles. Like I never could meld the purpose with the passion and the profits of it. I could never figure that out. So you're right. I too like didn't think entrepreneurship was ever for me. And it wasn't until I met somebody years ago who was an entrepreneur, and we were sitting there having lunch, and he's like, you're an entrepreneur, like. And then another guy like a couple months later was like, do you know you're a CEO? And I was like, what are these people seeing in me that I'm not seeing? And I realized for me it's because I am the dreamer. I'm not the executor necessarily, and everyone has their own skill sets that they're really good at, like. But I've now learned to hire people that are like going to set the course up. I can draft the course and create it and come up with the title, and I can put all the content into it. And then it's like, but I now need somebody to just upload it because I recorded the video. I don't want to like listen. I don't want to do that. And I can do it, but I'm not good at it. Like, and my time is better spent focusing on my strengths. And I do wish that at a younger age, I had learned those skills, meaning knowing what my skills were at that young of an age. And then also, like we were talking about, is now taking those skills and marketing it, meaning how do you talk about it to people who are potentially great fits to purchase the course or the coaching, etc. That is also my biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a client recently say to me, or a former client, she's like, your content is uninspiring to me right now. And that's not always the case. And I thought to myself, what a fucking rude thing to say. But then on the same breath, I was like, what an inspiring thing to say.
Yeah.
Because I'm also feeling uninspired by my content. So, and where am I just going through the motions, and where am I also putting all this extra pressure on myself to get it right, that it's actually causing me to kind of shrink and just say what I need to say and check that box and get it done.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, I was like, that's where the disconnect is. It's like there, if I look at it, it's fear. It's the pressure that I don't know what I'm saying. Because like my team always says, when you get a client to sign up with you, they stay for a very long time. And it's not because they feel that they need to. You're not creating codependent environments here. It's because they want to. They like your energy. They like what they're learning. They like the clarity and the confidence that they have. And then once they get into the course, I've had different courses. It's like, holy, it's mind blowing, right? And I'm sure people feel the same way about you, Savannah. And it's like, so then how do you say that before people sign up? Because for me, I don't love screenshotting what my client sends to me privately and saying, look at how great her results are or his results are. And therefore, you should sign up too. But we do know the psychology of the brain is that people want social proof. They want to know that what you bought worked for them. And it's like why I think like some of these bigger brands are really successful, and the people who have personal brands are really successful, because they're putting the clothes or they're putting the product on their body, and it's making a transformation that the person seeing wants. And then they go, and some people will read the reviews and some won't. I'm not a review reader. I want to try it and review it myself. But you bet your ass I buy stuff that friends recommend, because it's kind of like a review. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a big part of marketing for me, and selling and talking about the offers that I have, both coaching, etc. That's been one of the hardest parts of entrepreneurship.
Yep.
How do you market this? How do you use the language that your clients use? How do you not sound egotistical and like it's all about you, or that people need to have this? Because I don't want to sell from a place of scarcity. I don't want you to buy it if you don't want it. But I've got to give you the information to know whether or not you want it. And that can be a little tricky, because it's like, oh man, where am I coming across too salesy? Or where am I coming across, like it's all about the Katie show? And it's like, it's not. It's really about the clients who get in, and then you're like, yeah, no, I knew your life would change. Like, and you're just like, I didn't want to, it's like, how do I say that? You got to know what you're in.
Well, that sounded in like 3 to 5 sentences, because you have to keep it short. And like, how do you take a 6-week program and condense it into a 3-sentence pitch that doesn't sound cheesy or cliche? That's why I started the podcast.
Oh my God.
That's one reason I started the podcast, because it's a whole lot easier just to talk about it with people. And like, you get on here and you do these hour-long episodes that are full of information and tidbits and like inspiration and just really cool conversations. And then eventually it translates into, oh, you know what? They have products. This person has products that I could go like, if this is what they're, because it's all I fly by the seat of my pants on these podcasts. I don't really plan them out. I researched my guest a little bit, and I get some points. I didn't do that with you because I didn't have to. We've been connected for a really long time. I think I think you were a relationship coach when we first started.
When it came on.
Yeah.
When it first came on.
Yeah, I've had you on.
That was probably like 2020.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. But I feel like it was before that, actually, because I started the podcast in 2020, and I had you on a couple of years before that in the Facebook group when we were doing live.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It might have been 2019, because 2019 is when I started.
Okay.
Holy cow. That's crazy. Well, and I think it's also, you mentioned something too that was pretty impressive, is that you've been in business now for 10 years, and it started with you looking at your strengths of writing and then that translating into coaching. And I think one of the advantages that we have, right, is time. And I think so often I know when I'm in a mood, I can compare myself to somebody else. And then when I'm not in the mood, I'm able to logically be like, oh, well, they've been at it for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, or like I had a coach, she's been in business the same amount of time as I have, and she's made $1 million since starting her business. And I've made half that. And I thought to myself, like, what can I learn from her from that perspective? Well, also, what are the things that I wouldn't do? And there are quite a few things that like I've seen her do in her business that I'm like, that's not for me. Like, but it's also a reminder that like the money doesn't really mean shit. I mean, like, yeah, you can make this money and you can have a boatload of savings, or you can have debt, or you can have taken all these vacations. Like, everyone values different things. And so that's why some coaches or some companies are a luxury brand and others are, closer to like a Walmart and others are like a Target. It's like we all, and I don't know that it's anything to do with money blocks anymore. Now that I've been researching and studying money, it's like, yeah, it very much was at the beginning of like, I couldn't even fathom charging $1,000 for coaching. Like, who am I to, charge like somebody's rent or mortgage, when I've been freely given this information. And I realized, I was like, it's not been freely. I've, paid with my time, I've paid with my money, I've paid with my tears. And if I can take all that I've learned and help someone, and in the old case, it was, help someone trust themselves before getting back into a relationship. And now it's, how do I help someone trust themselves in business and start one or build one? It's like, what are those skill sets that I can teach people? And if they want to learn from me, then, I try to explain like, hey, 35% goes towards tax prep. All right. So like, I'm not like bringing in the big bucks. Like, I have to pay the government for what I do and my accountants. So I have to adjust for that, and, just being really honest about why the cost is what it is, and also not overdoing it either. It's like, I've realized this, like, I don't need to overpromise and overdeliver, because I used to charge $1,000 and I would give and give and give and give, and I burnt myself out.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, where I am with my packages now, it's like, okay, if you want to sign up for private coaching, you're welcome to do that. As a bonus, you get all the pre-recorded classes that I've already done. If you want to sign up for any live classes, that's an additional fee. And I didn't always do that. Sometimes I mostly just like let them have it all, and which is wonderful for them. But in the same breath, it was like, was that wonderful for me? Is that supportive to me and my business growth?
Exactly. The health of your business directly correlates to your own personal health. So you really have to, set up not only your prices, like what you're capable of handling that's sustainable for both you and your lifestyle, and I don't mean lifestyle like extravagance and stuff. I mean lifestyle like, okay, are my bills being paid? Is my rent being paid? Do my kids have what they need for school? XYZ, a little bit extra. With the amount of time I can give to this amount of people, with these fees queued, and like you have to like do the math. Like it's a very mathematical process. But also coming back to the priorities and whatnot, you have to and the how we think doing more is going to get us more free time, and it's not. And you have to be able to charge those prices so that you can do less and get the free time. But you also have to like structure things in that offer up the extra supplemental. You can't do it all on just coaching. You can't do it all on just products. You kind of got to mix the things up so that you have different incomes coming in at different things. But doing less leaves you inspired more and motivated more to have inspiring content that turns into marketing that brings more people in. It's all like a circle and a loop, right? Instead of just checking the boxes, instead of trying to get more in order for us to relax a little bit. We have to start with the relaxing a little bit, which is counterintuitive and really hard, especially for business owners and entrepreneurs. We tend to be very type A, very driven, very do, very yang energy. So
Yeah.
like just leaving the whole hustle culture out of it that we've been taught, to do. A lot of us who are entrepreneurs are just that type of personality anyway. So learning how to get some of that yin energy in and slowing everything down helps us to do less, to find clarity, to have that peace, that peace and space that we're yearning for and
Mm.
trying to reach out to, and making ourselves sick, making our business sick in the process, which just pushes it further away from us. When like it's hard to like I have um I have 3 text messages from people, not like clients, but like people trying to come onto the podcast, which is great. And like, I hate leaving people unanswered. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy because I know what it's like to be on the other end of that and having someone push your email off and push your email off. And like, after a point, are they ever going to email you back? And so I have 3 messages that I'm trying to get back to and answer for 3 weeks now. But I haven't had time, and I've had to allow myself the grace of choosing paying attention at my kids' softball game rather than trying to answer all of these messages. And that's the trade-off that we have to learn as entrepreneurs. Our priorities, where do they lie? Sometimes you have to let things go a little bit to be able to get the things that you actually want, right? We want the space to be able to watch our kids' softball game.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of hustling and doing more so that we can, we just kind of like set it aside, and it is what it is. We're only one person.
Yeah, I mean, you just said something around like I don't have enough time, right? Or I don't have time, I think is what you said. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking, oh, it's not that she doesn't have time, it's that it's what she values, right? And so like I try to say that to people who are deciding whether to coach or not, and they can't see what life's going to be like in 3 to 6 months.
Mhm.
Just I can't predict it. I can't tell them that everything's going to be better in 6 months, but I can say if your goal is to start a business, if your goal is to get to know yourself better, if your goal is to finding your purpose or buying a home, we can make steps towards doing that. Will you be living in your dream home in 6 months? I don't know that, and neither do you, because so much stuff can happen between now and then. But I always say it's like, listen, you spend money and you spend your time on the things that you value. And
Mhm.
so right now, like you were just explaining, like the season of hosting podcast interviews, like doesn't feel in alignment. And I know for me, like I just took a pause from recording my podcast for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
And, I started to evaluate, and it usually happens when I'm tired and when I'm kind of burnt out, is like, okay, what am I doing in my business and in life right now? Like, meaning, who am I, who am I spending my time with? Are my clients draining me, or are they like giving me energy? Right now I'm in a season where my clients are amazing and I have like love talking to them, right? When it comes to friendships, dating, relation, like all of that, I look at the same thing. I'm like, okay, what's giving me life and what is draining it? And for me, what I was finding was that the podcast recording was not, I wasn't feeling excited about it. And finding the guests, scheduling, rescheduling, getting it uploaded, all that stuff. Like I have a team that helps with most of that, but it still requires an hour of my time or half hour of my time to sit down and do the actual recording. And I just found myself being like, if I could get another client to take that hour slot who was as energetic and as life-giving as my other clients, and I could make more money, and that in turn would help them make more money, I'd rather do that than do the podcast right now.
Yeah.
And then even something simple like, I once saw these video recordings where you just do a quick little intro on your website, and it's like, hi, I'm Katie Grimes, I'm a business coach. Like, I help you get started, I help you find your purpose. We're going to talk about strategy, we're going to talk about spirituality and all that. Like you give them a nugget of like what the classes, I just found myself being like, it's fucking draining, pardon my French, but like it's draining to record those videos.
It is, yeah.
So my team we're revamping a lot of the websites, and my teammate was like, "Oh, can you record these new?" And I was like, "Take them down. I just don't want to do it right now. I give so much on Instagram. If somebody really needs to figure out like who I am or what this course is or whatever, like they can just do a little bit more research. Like I don't feel like recording the video." And part of it too is because in the videos I had been listing like the name of the course, when we're meeting, the price sheet, and I realized that one of the ways around that is not to give all those details, but instead being like, "Hi, I'm Katie Grimes. This course is called Starting Your Business. If you're in the place where you're wanting to start your business, and you want to learn how to create an offer, set it up, price it, and then get your first client, this is the course for you. All the details you need are below." Like literally 15 seconds. I could have done that, but I don't. I leave like a 2-minute message. It's all about who I am. Why is this best for them? Case study. Like it's just on and on and on. And I was like, that's just too much work.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. I'm even making myself yawn as we're talking about this. Like I was like, yeah, it's too much work right now. So I'm just in a season where doing less feels more supportive. And it's not to say that I'm making a ton of money to warrant doing less. I just want to be clear about that. Like I think that I've heard these coaches and business owners be like, "Oh my God, just have fun with your business. Like just, take a nap." And it's like taking a nap versus recording a video versus, doing whatever you need to do is make or break for some of us. And
Sure.
it certainly has been break for me. Like I'm like, I need to do these things so that I can be making money, which ultimately helps more people. But the reality is like my body and my mind have been very tired from being overly stressed from the environments in which I had put myself in,
Mhm.
both from childhood all the way up into the jobs that I had. And I never learned how to manage stress. So I had to hire people to help me learn how to manage stress. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started hiring a coach to help me, I remember she'd be like, "Well, you can just, sign up for your breathwork session." I'm like, "I'm not signing up 30 minutes to sign up for a breathwork session, 30 minutes of like doing anything else in my business. Like, I'm not doing it."
Mhm.
And now I consciously go, like, after this, when we're done with this, I will go lay down for an hour and just like chill, close my eyes, take a hot shower, even a bath, and just middle of the day, just relax, cocoon, and then come back up because I have to teach later today. And then I have a podcast to do tonight. So I just know my energy today is a little bit different than it was yesterday, where I crushed like, I think I made like 20 Instagram videos in one day, which never happens, but I had the energy for it.
Yeah.
And plus my hair and makeup were done. You know what I mean?
It's a balance for sure because you have to find that because you do have to have fun with your business or it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to connect, it's not going to resonate. And if you're forcing yourself to do the videos, then the energy's not there, so you're wasting your time. But at the same time, sometimes you have to do the things to be able to go forward and make pay the bills. So there is
Totally.
that balance that you have to find. Oh, it's a learning curve for sure. And I could see where a lot of people would think that it sounds privileged to be like, "Oh, just have fun, go take a nap. It's not a big deal." And I'm like, my rent is past due. It is kind of a big deal."
Right.
Then we get back to the manifesting thing where you get what you focus on and you get the energy that you're putting out. So you do have to find that balance where you're taking we're not saying take a nap, like neglect your responsibilities and your to-do list and the things, but you do have to find those uh boundaries. So there's some things that you have to say no to, like doing your hair and makeup for the video.
Well,
Just
yeah,
show
I
up who
agree.
you are.
I agree. And I mean, you just brought up something about rent being past due. So I ran into a situation recently where I had all these bills due at the same time. I was waiting for a loan from the bank to come through for the business because I applied for a small business loan, and nothing was coming in. Like I even like offered a client a refund because I just personally had done a consult with her. It was great. did a coaching session with her. She paid for the coaching session. She was going to stay on for 3 months, got in that coaching session and realized like, this client is, I'm not going to be able to best serve her. Like she needs help somewhere else. And so I was like, why don't I just give you a refund for this? Like I gave her the hour, but I was like, from an energetic perspective, it would feel really good to me to give her a refund so that she can go get the help that she needs. And also, I just personally found that her energy was not matching where I was at. Like, it was very much the victim mentality.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, while I'm offering a refund, which there isn't the same amount of money in the bank to offer a refund because I'm waiting, I paid all these bills, I'm waiting to pay rent. I literally sat, like laid down, I think I closed my eyes, took a nap, maybe even went to bed, I forget, right? And I just remember being like, okay, every time I take my hands off the wheel, like God comes through.
Mm,
And this is a tough season in my business right now where I'm supposed to learn how to rest and relax. And that feels impossible
mm-hmm.
because I'm supposed to, as a business coach who's helping people have really successful businesses, I'm supposed to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to, right? That's the story I'm telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is like, and I am successful even in an effort to wait for the cash to come, right? So it's like, I mean, when I look at the success that I've had, I essentially have a new business. I have a new baby. My baby's 1. My baby just turned 1 in August, aka my business, right? So my my business is going to require a lot more attention year 1 than my relationship coaching business did in year 3.5, year 4. That business was able to kind of sustain itself for a while. And so when I switched over, then it was like, oh shoot, I had all these medical bills, all this stressful stuff, all this learning I was doing. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to pay rent. That hasn't happened. I literally called some friends. I was like, that hasn't happened. Well, actually, that hasn't happened since my first year in business. And that's when it hit me. I went, oh,
It's my
I'm
first.
in my first year of business again. Okay. So 2 things happened. 3 things. One, I made a list of all my creditors, debitors, like whatever. And I was like, who can I ask for a little bit of leeway? Because if you don't avoid it, they'll help you. Now, not all companies will help, but certainly, I would say 50% of the companies were like, we can just delay your car payment by a month. Okay, cool. That buys me a little cash. My landlord was like, happy to. I'll even waive the fee.
Mm-hmm.
Paid him literally 10 days later. I didn't need 30 days. I was able to get the cash in 10 days, right? And then so that happened. I was able to make agreements with all of them. The cash came in from the loan. Other clients started signing up. I was able to give the other client a refund. Like it all started just working out for no known reason other than just trust and faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to be able to be like, oh, that's right. This happens in business. And then I kid you not, an advertisement comes up on my phone and it's like, read this article about this woman who, what was the tag? It's like those magazine headlines. It was like, she invested $150,000 of her retirement, and now 10 years later, she's worth 60, I think it was like 60 billion or something crazy out of this like Pilates company that she started. So I'm like, who is this girl? So I like start reading the article. And what did she do? Same deal. She was like, there were months I couldn't pay my rent. There were months where I chose not to take a salary. There were months where I took all the money from my retirement and put it towards the business. And if I were to do it all over again, I would. And it's like, there's just those little reminders where like, if we can be really honest about the financials, if we can be really honest about our energy, I think it will go a really long way for entrepreneurs and business owners and people thinking about going into this field to be like, when you are living your purpose and you know that you are meant to do this thing that you and I are doing and to use our strengths, it's worth the ups and downs of the financials that come, or the energy, or the comparison, or the confidence. Like it is worth it at the end of the day. It always outweighs. My purpose always outweighs all the other factors that are a little wonky sometimes. And I think, again, I'm glad that we're having this like really honest conversation about about what the ups and downs really look like as opposed to just talking about the ups.
Yeah. Yeah, and here we are full circle to like the beginning where we were like, we lie. We lie to ourselves, we lie to
Mm-hmm.
everyone else.
Yep.
No, you do have to be honest with yourself and with everybody because that's how you move forward in the most positive way. And that's how faith does come in for the save. Because it's like doing, you do a no call, no show is going to cause a whole lot more problems than if you let them know and like, hey, this is what's going on and I can't. And, that's a lot better. But the funny thing is that so many of us would rather just avoid it by
Mm.
all costs and pretend it doesn't exist rather than look at it and spend literally 3 minutes addressing it. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is how we move forward. So, I mean, that's just the process of it.
It's so true. And you're reminding me that oftentimes new business owners will ask me, but do I have to show my personal life? Do I have to show my face? Do I have to talk about the ups and the downs and the healing that I'm doing? I'm like, you don't have to. You can be successful without being really honest and really vulnerable. But I find for me, the type of business that I want to create, the type of business and life that I want to live is to be this real and raw.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to show, I do want to talk about the time that I had a hard time paying rent because you and I are going to be laughing about this in 10 years when, like, something amazing is happening. And I'm like, remember that time I told you that I couldn't pay my rent in 2023? Like, it's not the case now. Like, the house is paid in full, or something like that. Like, just, we're going to have these moments where we look back and it's like, oh, yeah. And I think for everyone out there, it's like you don't have to share what you don't want to. But I almost wonder that the more that you share, I mean, you texted me this when I asked you about like, are we recording this live where like you're gonna use the video? And you were like, yeah, but if we just show up as we are, we're more relatable. And I was like, no, I agree with you. That's why I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm not gonna have your makeup. It's like we get to just be who we are and people will relate and resonate with that. I mean, we think about Glennon Doyle's book Untamed. I mean, that was a book where I just remember being like, wow, that is honest. She talked about leaving her marriage and falling in love and all the messiness around coming out and being gay. It's like there was so much messiness in that book that I remember being like, oh, this thing's gonna take off because it was real and it
Yeah.
was raw. And whether you agreed with her or not, you could relate to that messiness.
Yes. I think we get too stuck on being polished, especially as business owners. Especially as business owners, we feel like everything has to be like and I've had people attack me online and stuff because I say the word dude or yo or whatever and they're like, are you expect me to take you seriously as a professional when you speak like this? And I'm like, I mean, you don't, or you dress like this. And I'm like, I mean, I really don't care. If you have a problem with that, you're exactly the type of people I don't want to be hanging out with in my client sessions, for one. But that's real life is messy, and business as an extension of ourselves is also very messy. The thing that people don't understand is that people business is so messy that the legal people don't even know what to tell you about how to do things. Like I've been especially in the beginning, I would go to a lawyer and I would go to the courthouse and then they would send me over to the annex and then they would send me to whoever, I don't know. And nobody knew what kind of licenses I needed. Nobody knew what kind of like, and it's your responsibility as a business owner to have all of your legal ducks in a row,
Sure.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's nearly impossible sometimes to figure out what kind of legal ducks that means. And I had my lawyer in the very, very beginning. He gave me this advice that I've kind of held with me, and it gave me another perspective on the world because I was terrified of being not non-complacent with legalities and whatnot. It like really froze me up, and I see it freezing a lot of people up always, all the time. And my lawyer told me at the time that people get too stuck on the legalities on businesses that may or may not even work. He said, just do stuff. And then when it starts becoming profitable, backtrack and cover all of the bases that you have.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I work with my Natalie, who's my lawyer, Natalie Puglisi, and she was saying kind of something similar around like, okay, become a sole proprietor, LLC it once you start making money. We'll S corporate once you're making a boatload of money. But like right now, you're at that phase. Like so, I think I was year 2 or 3 in, and that's when I LLC'd it because I was like, for me, it was like making over $100,000 in a year. I was like, that's a good point for me to start having limited liability, right? Like and but you're right. Like when I, thankfully, Natalie, and I know there's some other lawyers out there too that probably do something similar, which is like they now have legal templates, one-on-one, group, etc., for coaches. So it
Mm-hmm.
definitely helps because now, like, she's so, oh, I love her. Like, she just knows the ins and outs of coaching businesses and consulting businesses so well that I always am like, okay, I'm good. She's like, yeah. And we always rewrite something in the contract once we run into it. I remember one time I hit record on a class, but in the actual advertisement for the class, it didn't say that the call was recorded, and someone pushed back like publicly in the court, and I was like, oh fuck. And so I texted her on the side. I was like, yo, am I good? And she was like, yeah, because they. And then we realized like, oh, they didn't sign up through me. They signed up through somebody else, so it didn't have that legal doc. And she was like, now we just know. Now we know that anytime that you're going to do something recorded, you got to put it in here. You got to put it in the legal doc. You got to put it on the website. So, like, you just run into that shit later and you're like, okay. But I remember my liability insurance company was like, wait, you run a podcast, you're a life and business coach, you talk about sex sometimes in your podcast. Okay, like, your liability is going way up. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why? And they're like, because you're talking about pretty taboo stuff. And I was like, oh my God, give me a break.
I know.
But it's been a really good measure for any client thereafter to be like, hey, you don't need to spend more than $1,200 if your liability is less than mine, meaning you're not talking about sex, you don't have a podcast, like that should be a good measure. But I even find too that like I had a client who was a therapist and they changed over to coaching and they were like trying to be so professional through that. And I was like, you don't need to. You can, the gloves are off now. Like, you guys can be who you really are because that's what's going to bring business in. And they're like, you mean we don't have to write notes and like do, like, submit paperwork? And I was like, no, you don't have to do any of that unless you want to. It's like, I do it in my first session with a client and then I do it at the end, but I don't do anything in between. They're like, oh my God. I was like, dress how you want to dress, write what you want to write, but like legally and from a liability perspective, you are safe. I get it. It does hold a lot of people back.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of who we think we should be versus what other people think we should be.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot we could unpack. We could do several more episodes on all of that,
It's so
which is why you have your own podcast and so do I. We can go on
true.
forever, right?
Exactly. Well, I so appreciate you having me on. It was so nice to reconnect with you and have a really honest and raw conversation about entrepreneurship and owning our own businesses and the burnout and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Tell people where they can find you. Give them your website and what.
Yeah. Couple of ways. Number one, Instagram, first and foremost, kg.katiegrimes. The second way is on my podcast, Anything for Love. You can find that on Spotify and on iTunes. And grimes.com that has all the latest courses and coaching opportunities if you're feeling inspired.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And I will definitely link all of that close by.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Katie Grimes for that awesome episode. We definitely touched on a lot of things that I don't feel gets touched on enough in the entrepreneurial world. There's no reason that we need to be out here stressing ourselves out. The hustle, 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 grind, that's all, that's old. We don't want to do that anymore. That's making us sick. So if you'd like some help figuring all of that out, if you're on that travel and whatnot, then let one of us know and we'd be happy to see if we can help you out. Come hang out with us in the Patreon. That's patreon.com/earth and water. The and is spelled out. It's only $5 a month because I don't want to be on a schedule and posting yoga videos every week anymore. That's not where my energy's at. That's not where the energy is at. I teach intuitively by reading the room, and I can't really do that with an empty room. So I'm just going to teach yoga in real life for the most part. I will still be uploading yoga videos from time to time because I do enjoy it to an extent, just not all the time. It was becoming a chore, and our energy's not best spent there. It's best spent other places. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Rate and review. Share it with your friends if you can, if you think that they would enjoy it. We don't want to bombard people with just random stuff. It has to apply. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all. Thank you for helping me do this, and I will see you next week. Namaste.